What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. Who else is super hyped from that intro song? Damn, it is time to play some poker. Buying in for $3,000 here in Dallas, playing at Texas Card House. Let's get right into the action. Starting it off here with pocket tens, I raise it up to $25. Two later position players make the call, and the small blind makes the call, so we're going four ways to the flop, which comes out jack high. The small blind checks, and given the fact that I am multi-way on a board that has one overcard to my pair, I decide to check, and the rest of the players check as well. Going to the turn, which is the 5 of diamonds, now bringing two flush draws, so when the small blind checks again and nobody bet on the flop, I think I have the best hand here, so I put out a bet. I make it $50. Two players end up folding back to the small blind, who decides to make the call, so I put him mostly on a draw or a one pair hand. Going to the last card, which is another 5, he checks it over to me, and I feel pretty comfortable going for value here. I put out one black chip, 3 red chips, $115, trying to get called by maybe a 9, pocket 8s, pocket 7s, just anything here. Maybe even ace high. The small blind thinks for a while, looks over at me, looks back at his cards, looks at his chips, and decides to let his cards go. So we end up taking down this first pot. Last week in Vegas, I was playing 5, 10, 20, and even 10, 20, 40. So this game is a little bit smaller than I'm used to, which does tend to let me get out of line a lot more, which we do in this hand. We get way out of line on the button. There's 3 limps. I ISO raise to $50 with 6-9 offsuit, and all of the limpers end up calling. So going four ways to a flop, which comes out jack, jack, 7, 1 heart. Not really sure what I was doing raising this hand pre-flop. I guess just trying to take down that dead money or go heads up. We end up going four ways, and on this board, I am not going to be c-betting into all these people. So when it checks to me, I decide to check this one back. The turn card is the 6 of hearts. Does give us a pair and brings in a heart flush draw. When it checks to the cutoff player, he puts out a bet. He puts out a bet of $125, and this player had been splashing around a lot, playing probably 50 or 60% of hands, so it doesn't mean that he's going to have a very strong hand here. He could have some draws, maybe a 6 himself, so I make the call and the other players end up folding. I think to myself, if the river is a heart, maybe I could possibly represent a flush if my opponent checks, but we're going heads up to the last card, which is the 10 of hearts. When the cutoff bets the turn, then checks this river, I wouldn't expect him to do that with a full house, a straight, a flush, or even a jack. So I think he has a 7 here a lot of the time, or possibly a 6 that's better than mine. So I decide to turn my hand into a bluff. I bet big. I make it $400 here on the river, trying to get my opponent to fold a better 6 than mine, or a 7, or maybe even pocket 8s. He doesn't think for too long and folds, so we end up taking down this pot, our second pot of the night, with a big lick, 6-9 offsuit on the button. All right, no more trash hands. Let's upgrade to a premium ace queen offsuit. We raise it up to $35. The cutoff calls and the small blind makes a call too. So 3 ways to a flop of 10-9-9 rainbow. Small blind checks, I check, and the cutoff bets, and we both fold. One of the best things about Texas poker is that you can match the biggest stack at the table. I look around and there is one stack at about $5,000, so I add on another $2,000 so that I can cover the table. Next up, I look down at pocket 10s. There's a limp. I raise it up to $35, which is my standard sizing here at these tables. It's very deep stacked, so I want to be going bigger with my raise sizes. We end up getting 2 callers, so 3 ways to the flop, which comes out deuce, 3, 4, 2 hearts. We do flop an overpair, but it's kind of a scary board. My opponents can have some straights and some sets. However, that is not going to stop me from betting here. I put out a bet of $75, and both my opponents end up making the call. Still 3 ways to the 4th card, which is the ace of clubs. Probably one of the worst cards in the deck. Now, obviously, an ace beats me and a 5 beats me. When it checks to me, I check, and it checks all the way around. And the river card is a 5, so now there's a straight on the board. When it checks to me, I am not going to be trying to turn my hand into a bluff in case someone has a 6, so I check, and the later position player checks as well. We all end up showing our hands, and we end up 3-way chopping this pot up.
Lord.
Oh, you're pretty low early. Why don't you bet?
About 7 months ago, I posted a vlog playing with my dad here at Texas Card House, and he heard I was coming back here, so he made the trip down to Dallas, and he is playing at my table, seat number 5. He's got about $5,000 in his stack. He's running pretty good so far this session. Speaking of the old man, he makes it $25. There's 2 calls. I look down at king queen suited on the button, and I'm going to be 3-betting this one up. I got to get my revenge from all those years of my dad pulling my hair, twisting my ear, and wouldn't let me eat ice cream past 10 o'clock. I 3-bet him. I bump it up to $140 here. The action pretty quickly folds back around to my dad, who glares over at me, looks down at his chips, looks over at my chips. He then threatens to take away my weekly allowance if I keep 3-betting him, but eventually he decides to fold, and the rest of the players end up folding as well, so we end up taking down this pot with king high. Next up, I look down at King 4 suited from early position and I decide to fold. In this next hand, there is an early position limp for 5. I look down at 7-10 suited on the button and decide to ISO raise. I make it $30. The big blind playing basically every hand makes a call, and the limper makes a call as well. We end up flopping 2 pair. Finally, we make a hand here, 7-10 jack with 2 diamonds. When it checks to me, I put out a $75 bet, and both of my opponents end up making the call. We see a turn of the 8 of spades, very bad card now, queen 9, and any 9 makes a straight, so when it checks to me, I check this one back. The last card is a king, even worse card for us. It can give our opponents a better 2 pair, and ace queen makes a straight as well, so when the under the gun player leads out for a pot-sized bet, I just fold my hand in disgust and move on to the next one. Next up, we are under the gun, look down at queen 4 offsuit and decide to let this one go. We make the fold. So far, we have been playing about 3 hours, a swingy session so far. We're up around $350 with a little over $5,000 in our stack. After being card dead for about an hour, we finally look down at a premium ace jack of diamonds. We end up raising it up here to $30. The small blind, one of the tightest players at the table, 3-bets me, but he only makes it $80. So can't be folding for that price with a suited ace and in position, so I end up making the call. We go heads up to a flop, which I totally miss, and I fold to a c-bet. If you have been to Texas before, you know about the crazy PLO double board bomb pot. In this hand, we end up flopping the nut straight on a bottom board, and then we have basically nothing on the top board. We call a bet on the flop along with a button, and then on the turn, the same player bets out again. He makes it $250. I make the call for $250, and the button comes along as well. So we still have the nuts on the bottom board, but we don't have anything on the top board. We could be getting quartered if our opponents have the same straight on the bottom, but just a pair on the top. So I'm just playing this one slow. I really don't know what I'm doing in these kind of hands. It's a double board, PLO bomb pot. I don't really have any experience in these. So on the river, it comes 2 bricks. We have the nuts on the bottom, and the same player leads out for $425. I'm not going to be folding. I'm not going to be raising, so I just make the call. After I call $425, the button is in the tank. He does not know what to do here. He is thinking over his options for a long time. What do you have? I'll tell you what to do. Just kidding.
I can. Let you see it. Oh my god. How much is it? Half fold. Fold a hose.
I have the bottom.
Bottom is. What? But it's straight on the bottom.
Yeah. I think we have the exact same hand.
Oh my god! Seriously. What the hell?
That is crazy.
We have the exact
Oh my god!
Exact same, man.
Look at that!
It's almost rare.
Why you fold?
What do you had?
The button ends up painfully folding. We end up showing our cards, and we have the exact same hand straight on the bottom and just pocket tens on the top, so we end up chopping up the button's money, and yeah, I guess I'm a PLO bomb pot pro now, so that's good. All right, enough with the PLO madness. We're back to 2 cards and look down at 2 beautiful ladies. Pocket queens from early position make it $25. We end up getting 3 callers, so 4 ways to the flop. I got to get used to this multi-way action. It's something I'm not really used to after playing 2 or 3 weeks in Vegas. So the flop comes out jack high, pretty good for us. When it checks to me, I put out a $70 bet, and only the big blind makes the call. The big blind is one of those players that you love to play pots with. He's given a ton of action. So when the turn card is an 8 and he checks it over to me, I may check this one back if I was up against a tough regular or a pro. Given the fact that it's a connecting card and could improve my opponent to a straight, 2 pairs, but against this guy, I am definitely not going to be checking queens on a jack high board. I put out a $150 bet. This is one of the reasons why I moved to Texas to play 9-handed against a lot of recreational players who have a lot of money on the table. So we are rooting for a call here. Let's win a big pot with our pocket queens, but unfortunately the big blind has other plans. He ends up letting this one go, but we still end up taking down a medium-sized pot here with pocket queens. The same action player I just played a hand with raises to $40 from early position. I look down at pocket sevens, and this is a slam dunk call all day long. I expect him to have a pretty strong hand here. He was limping a lot, not really raising too often, so if we hit a set, we could win a big pot. There ends up being 2 more callers, so we end up going 4 ways to the flop. We have yet to make a big hand and win a big pot here in Texas, so we're looking for a red 7, and the dealer comes through for us. The flop is jack 7 deuce. We end up flopping our set in position in a multi-way pot. The action player unfortunately checks, and I'm not going to be checking my set here. I put out a bet of $85. Folds all the way back around to the early position player, who folds. Maybe it is finally our turn to win a big, massive pot here. When we look down at Ace King, there's about 4 or 5 limpers. I raise it up big. I make it $60. The action folds to the big blind player who puts in a 3-bet. He makes it $140, and I haven't seen this player get 2 out of line throughout this session. He hasn't been 3-betting very often, definitely hasn't been bluffing, and now the under-the-gun limper decides all of his chips are going in there. He shoves all in for $215. So now we are in an interesting spot here with Ace King. The under the gun player shoves for $215, and if I call $215, it doesn't reopen the pot, so the big blind cannot re-raise. However, I could put in a re-raise if I wanted to. I could make it maybe $400 or $500. The big blind has around $1,000 left in his stack, but like I was saying earlier, this player has not been getting out of line. He seems pretty tight, seems pretty competent, knows what he's doing, so I expect him to have a hand like pocket jacks, queens, kings, aces, and ace king himself. In the past, I might try to re-raise here to $600 or $700, just trying to get it all in with the big blind. However, I really don't like flipping. Whenever you're flipping for a big, massive pot and leaving it up to the dealer, it just takes a skill edge totally out of the game. I like to play post-flop in position against my opponents, so I decide to just make the call for $215, knowing that the big blind has only one option, and that is to call as well. So we end up going 3 ways to a pretty big pot here. With over $600 in the middle, the board comes out ace, 8, 9, 2 spades. We flop top pair, top kicker. Great board for us. The big blind player checks it over to me, which is what I was assuming he would do with 100% of his range here. I don't think he has ace king because I have ace king and there's an ace on the board. I put him on 10s, jacks, queens, or possibly pocket kings. I don't have a spade in my hand, so I'm definitely not going to be checking this one just in case he has a hand like king, queen of spades or king, jack of spades, but I want to bet small to keep him in there with those smaller pairs. I make a $175 bet. He thinks over his options for a little bit of time and ultimately decides to fold, so we are heads up here to the last 2 cards.
I have ace king.
The board runs out clean for us. Our opponent chose a weaker ace, so we end up taking down this pot with ace king. Our stack has grown to over $6,000 now. We're up about $1,000 on the session with about 2 hours left to play for the night. This next hand is pretty interesting here. When the hijack makes it $35 over 1 limp, I feel like he's pretty strong here, so I just make the call with ace queen in the cutoff position. The button folds, small blind makes a call, and the limper calls as well, so 4 ways to a flop. Queen, 6, 8, 2 diamonds. We flop top pair, top kicker with the backdoor nut flush draw. Very above average flop for us. When it checks the initial raiser, he announces a bet of $125. I make the call pretty quickly. Not going to be folding here, obviously. We could be losing 2 hands like aces, kings, or possibly queens, or maybe pocket 8s. I don't think he would raise pocket 8s or pocket 6s to that sizing pre-flop. So I'm going to tread carefully here, but definitely not going to be folding. The other players let go of their cards, so we're going heads up to the turn. The dealer puts out the 4th card, which is the 5 of clubs, and now my opponent snap checks it over to me. So with around $500 left in his stack, I don't think he's ever checking an overpair, so I'm almost 100% sure I have the best hand, and I talked about this in my later videos about bet sizing, and I expect him to have an underpair to the board sometimes, maybe ace king or a flush draw, so I want to bet a sizing that will allow him to call with a wider range of hands and let me get value from my top pair, top kicker. I bet $175 here, trying to let my opponent peel with his under pairs or possibly ace king, and if he has a flush draw, he's drawing to about 30% equity, so I don't mind a call here. I'm going to win this pot 70% of the time if he has a flush draw. We're going to the river, which is the king of diamonds, one of the worst cards in the deck. Obviously now we're losing to ace king and any flush, and it gets even worse when my opponent snap jams all in for around $350. Well, we are in a disgusting spot here. Maybe sometimes he is turning an underpair into a bluff like jacks or 10s, but that's very unlikely. Maybe he has ace king here that he floated with on the turn and now he's shoving, but I don't think he would do that when the flush got there. I do block the nut flush. I have the ace of diamonds. The king of diamonds is on the board, so he's only left to having like queen x of diamonds. Would he check that on the turn? Maybe he has jack 10 of diamonds. A terrible river card for us. He's probably going to have a flush or a king a lot of the time here. So we're just going to have to make a disciplined fold. And this is when our small bet sizing does backfire on us. But like I said, if he had the queen or jack high flush draw, he was only drawing to 30 or 25% on the turn, which in the long run is going to leave us to win the pot 70% of the time. But sometimes you're going to run bad and they will get there. I end up making the fold, and he later told me he had queen jack of diamonds, so unfortunate river there. He ends up scooping down this pot. Pretty unfortunate there, losing some of our profit on the river, but we do have time for one more hand in this vlog, and it's going to be a spicy one, and it all starts with an under the gun straddle to 15, a couple callers. We look down at ace 5 of clubs and decide to just make the call, and we end up going 7 ways to the flop. 7 ways to the flop. Welcome to Texas poker, baby. We see a board of queen, 7, deuce, 2 clubs. We flop the nut flush draw and 1 over card. Great board for us. When it checks to me, I put out a $50 bet. Folds all the way back around to the small blind, who looks over at me. Looks like he wants to raise, but then decides to just make the call. The alarm bells are going off a little bit. He looked like he wanted to raise, but just made the call. I feel like he might be laying in the weeds here with a really strong hand. We end up going heads up to the turn, which is the 3 of hearts, now improving us to a gut shot straight draw, 1 over card, and the nut flush draw. Our hand is very strong, and the big blind, the guy who looked like he wanted to raise, now leads out. He makes it $105. So this play is very strong. I bet into a bunch of people in the flop he called, and now he's leading out on the turn. I wouldn't expect him to be doing this with anything less than 2 pair or a set, so I could be putting him all in here for his last $400, but I don't think I have any fold equity, so I decide to just make the call. If I hit one of my outs, I should be able to stack this guy. So like I said earlier, I think he has 2 pair or a set, so our ace is probably no good here. We're looking for a 4 or a club, going to the last card, which is a spade, but it's the 4 of spades, giving us a straight. My opponent checks it over to me, which I'm very surprised with. This should be a very big brick. So now I think he has a queen, like ace queen, king queen, or queen jack. And now he's trying to pot control, get into showdown cheaper. So I got to put out a bet that he can call with all of his queen X hands. I make it $250. The big blind doesn't think for too long and decides $250 is enough to see my cards. He puts in the call. I show ace 5 of clubs for a straight, and he shows pocket 7s for a set. What the hell? How did he just check call with a set on the river? That's pretty crazy, but can't complain. Ended up hitting a gut shot and winning a big pot here. Our last pot of the evening, we end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Alright guys, that is it for our first Texas Card House vlog while we're staying here in Dallas, and I love this place, man. The action is great, 9-handed, huge stacks. Just can't ask for much better for a Friday night playing poker here in Dallas, Texas. In the game for $5,000, had a swingy night, up and down, up and down, and up and down. Ended up cashing out $5,650 for a profit of $650. So I would take it. A win is a win. Hope you guys enjoy these videos. I have a lot more videos coming up. Going to be making 2 videos a week, playing on live streams. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like, subscribe, comment down below. And until next time, I'll see you.